Good evening. Welcome to this Zoom webinar forum with the candidates for the City of Port Orchard Council. Tonight's forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kitsap, which is recording this event for later access. BCAT, Bremerton-Kitsap Access Television, is also recording tonight. My name is Janet Stegemyer, and I will be the moderator for this forum. The League of Women Voters is proud to be a nonpartisan organization, neither supporting nor opposing candidates and political parties. The League envisions a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. The League celebrated its 100th anniversary last year, and we'd like to invite any of you age 16 or older, all genders, to join our organization and help support our mission of empowering voters and defending democracy. The public was invited to send in questions through the League's website. We've consolidated those plus others into the questions I'll ask of tonight's candidates. The questions will cover a range of topics and issues pertinent to Port Orchard. Candidates for Port Orchard City Council District 2 are Randy Jones, Alex Ayala, and Jay Rosapepe. Candidates for the council at large position are Shaun Williams, Mark Trenary, and Cody Morgan. Although Terry Lynn's name will be on the ballot, she has suspended her campaign. All candidates were invited to attend tonight's forum, or if they could not attend, send in a statement that I would read, but that hasn't happened. So we are thrilled to have the three candidates that we do, and we'll proceed. Thanks to all of you for stepping up to offer your skills and talents in service to the community. You deserve our respect. We also ask that during this forum, you maintain civility with one another. Candidates, during tonight's format, each of you will be given 1.5 minutes to make an opening statement. We will go in the order your names appear on the ballot. Then I will begin the questions. Each of you, in a rotating order, will have 60 seconds to respond. If you have answered a question and have time remaining, you may speak about a previous question or clarify a statement. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to make a closing statement. If you run out of time, you may finish your sentence. Our timekeeper will maintain the countdown electronic clock. So it's time for our opening statement, 1.5 minutes, Mr. Jones. You're muted, Mr. Jones.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. For the last 10 years, I've been in an eminent domain battle with the city of Port Orchard, and without knowing where they're standing and what's going to happen. So that has motivated me to finally get involved. Seems to have gone away and then comes back, kind of like a cancer. So here I am. And I've also noticed when I went to many city hall meetings that money was spent on consultants, lobbyists, on and on and on, in taxpayer dollars, for whether from the city or from the state or from the feds. And that is not what I believe in. I don't believe in annexation, and I don't believe the city needs to grow beyond its beautiful boundaries. And I certainly want to protect the downtown city core. I've had over 20,000 customers on my charter boats, and over 140 people have done reviews on my vacation rental, and they love Port Orchard the way it is. There's only a few towns like it, and I don't want to see it change into another brick and mortar creature.
Thank you. Mr. Rosapepe.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, Kitsap, for hosting this forum. I think it's a great way to get the word out for all the candidates. Myself, I'm a retired 20-year Navy veteran and have leadership positions with South Kitsap School District, Pierce Transit, Mason Transit, Boeing, Starbucks, and U.S. Navy. I continue to bring a different perspective to the City Council. We're working collaboratively with other City Council members. You're one of 7, So it takes all of us to row in the same direction. I also work with the mayor and civic leaders to make sure that what we're doing with the city is correct and legal. My wife, Susan, and I have lived in South Kitsap since 1993, in the city of Port Orchard since 2009, when the area west of 16 was annexed. I believe in the citizens of the city of Port Orchard. I'm a fiscal conservative and believe that thoughtful planning and encouragement to our current downtown businesses, we can continue to renovation that will re-energize our city. This includes downtown, the Bethel corridor, and connecting with city residents west of SR 16. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll wait for the clock here. Mr. Williams.
There we go. Like Mr. Rosapepe, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. And the only statement I really have is the one that's in the voters pamphlet with a few addendums. That statement reads, "This pandemic has been hard on everyone. Everyone knows someone who has lost their job or otherwise been affected by the closures and shutdowns. In the past, even I have experienced homelessness and unemployment, even recently. The community needs help. Unfortunately, right now, the city council seems to be more concerned with the bike path to Annapolis. Questions need to be asked at every city council meeting. Why, who, what, how, etc. For example, why are we spending millions of dollars building a bike path to Annapolis when our streets are filled with potholes? Same with roundabouts. Who would the ordinance or project benefit? Why are we condemning and tearing down people's homes when we have a homelessness crisis? Where's the tax money going? Why is an ordinance or project needed? We need to revitalize the downtown area and work with the Port of Bremerton and the Port Orchard Chamber of Commerce to make Port Orchard a designation on the Sound. We need to cut out the graft and pork from the city budget. We need to get the government out of the way of small business. Politicians' first duty should be the Constitution and their constituents. Small businesses and their employees are the source of recovery. I am a strict constitutionalist and support a Republican, small r, form of government that the Constitution guarantees."
Okay, thank you. So question one, it'll be 60 seconds. What inspired you to run for a position on the city council? And we'll start with Mr. Rosapepe. You're muted.
Yes, no, I'm not. What inspired me was the fact that I had lived here when the area west of 16 was annexed. It was a good time to become involved in city government. During this time frame, I've served as mayor pro tem and on the various city council committees, including land use and economic development. So wanting to continue to serve and see the work continue that we've started has been paramount to running for a third term. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
I've lived downtown for a few years now at the marina, and I've seen some of the changes, and they're not all good. We've had a building and a business gone since before I even moved downtown at the corner there next to the public market. We need to, I've noticed we need to revitalize downtown because I spent a lot of time there. But I've seen what the city council seems to prioritize, and it's not downtown. It's not anything that would benefit the citizens. It's things that would benefit developers and big business and things like that. We need to, so that's what inspired me to run, because we need to refocus our efforts not on roundabouts and a walkway, a bike path to Annapolis that will destroy a bar because you annex its parking lot. So that's what's inspired me to run for.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
It's hard to follow Shaun there because he pretty much said everything I have to agree with. I started going to city council meetings over this eminent domain issue, and I'm not the first person to be raked over the coals by eminent domain from the city over the years. But yes, everything he said was right. I've been here since 1979, and I've watched this. If things went through the way the current administration would like, downtown Port Orchard would not look like downtown Port Orchard. And I find it reprehensible that the city of Port Orchard gets into the buying of real estate. And I think find it reprehensible annexation. Whiskey Gulch would not be in this situation if they had not annexed it. And so I will be here. If I don't win and if I lose my home, I will be back.
Thank you. Question 2, describe your relevant previous experiences that prepare you for the council role. What skills, training, resources, and expertise will you bring to the council? And we'll start with Mr. Rosapepe.
That's 2 in a row. Relevant experience is, besides living here for the past 20 years and in the city since 2009, when we were annexed, the area was annexed by the city with Growth Management Act. I've served on numerous committees with the city, as I mentioned, economic development. I've been mayor pro tem. I'm currently the chair of the land use committee and chair of the lodging tax committee, disbursement. I have a degree in business and finance from Mount St. Mary's College and one in engineering from the University of Kansas. I've worked with numerous civic organizations on a voluntary basis, from the South Kitsap helpline to the Jingle Bell Run to the Arthritis Foundation to the South Kitsap School Supporters. I think I'm uniquely qualified for this job.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Well, like Mr. Rosapepe, I'm a 20-year veteran of the United States Navy. In my case, was operation and maintenance of the naval nuclear propulsion plants. So I have experience dealing with highly technical and very complicated things, and leading work centers and personnel and things, and directing maintenance and a watch team and so forth. So I've got leadership experience. I've got military experience. I've got small business experience because I work for but essentially it's a mom and pop marine technical company. There's less than 10 employees. And I'm a bit active in the local politics. This is a nonpartisan position, so I'm not going to mention which party I'm active in, so because it's not applicable. But let's just say I'm a strict constitutionalist with libertarian leanings.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Okay, as I mentioned, I've been here for 42 years. The last 20 years, I've ran a charter boat operation with my boat Joker that holds up to 30 people. So in 20 years, we're working 2 out of 3 days. We estimate 1,500 people a year on the boat over 20 years, 35,000, half of which are tourists. And in that time, like my predecessor, the mayor of Bremerton, I spend 6 to 8 hours on the boat with a limited amount of people, along with a crew. And so I do at least know the tourism business. I know what they really like and what they really see in the city, because they've been on my boat. They're stuck with me for 7 hours a day. So I get to hear them talk and they get to hear me talk. So that's my take.
Right. Thank you very much. Clock here. All right. Question 3. If elected to the city council, what would be your top priority? And we'll start with Mr. Williams.
My top priority, if elected, would be to get some fiscal responsibility into the council. I don't know why we're going into debt and borrowing money for that bike path that I despise. But that, and I'm a proponent of accountability, both of police, politicians, public servants, things like that. They should be held accountable for what they do. If they pass an ordinance or a rule that affects the taxpayer and someone sues over it, it's not the taxpayer that should be funding the defense. It should be the people that approved it or did it. So they should be personally defending it, not the taxpayer. That's a waste of taxpayer money. And that's something I despise, is wasting taxpayer money. Everything should go toward what it's supposed to. I also support a local ban on income taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be sitting right next. Yes, I'm hoping to be sitting right next to Shaun. He kind of echoes my thoughts, or I echo his. And I've sat through the city meetings patiently watching them spend money on lobbyists, huge contracts, tens of thousands of dollars, and other projects. They just can't wait to get grants and bonds for this project. But there's more coming, the government campus. There's more things coming. And our planning department was furious that I was told that my house was on the chopping block, because that's the kind of unaccountability and non-transparency that our planning department has. My first priority is to do what I can to block the planning department from any more destruction.
Thank you. Mr. Rosapepe.
Thank you. My first priority on the council is still to look at improving the infrastructure of the city, including the roads, making sure that we get our roads in order, water, to make sure that we don't have any more moratoriums and that we can take stop taking water from Bremerton that is required right now to provide water to the city residents, and also to make sure that we have adequate sewer connections to serve all the residents of Port Orchard, not just the downtown residents of Port Orchard, because we are a city that is growing, whether we like it or not. One of the last things I'd like to bring up is something that we recently did in one of our precepts for the city. We have 4 that we work on. We added a 5th on the diversity of the city and its employees, and I was very happy to see that we are embracing that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, question 4, and this is lengthy. It's on new construction. So there's several parts to it. With a shortage of land available for development in the Gig Harbor area and the appeal of a fast ferry out of Southworth, Port Orchard has become a focus for new construction. A 50% increase in population is projected for the city. More than 4,000 new homes and apartments are being built or planned within the Port Orchard city limits. The 2-part question is, 1, how is access to water being secured and who is paying for it? The new property owners or the existing property owners? And 2, are the impact fees being collected from new construction adequate to pay for additional classrooms, schools, and other infrastructure? Or will that expense be imposed on all property owners? And we'll start with Mr. Jones.
That one's a great one. First of all, that one is definitely a great one. First of all, how did we get there in the first place with the water shortage, with annexations? That's how we got there. Second of all, we do not need to grow the city limits of Port Orchard. We need to live within the city limits. Also, as far as the Southworth Ferry, I watched the Kingston downtown Seattle fail, as I had my charter boat up there for a while, and I watched it fail. The idea of a fast ferry to Seattle is good, but again, I've had many boats and many offers, and just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And adding more boats without consideration is not the plan. And let's live within our means for once.
Thank you. Mr. Rosapepe.
Thank you. I'll get that button working yet. In answer to your question, we do have a projection of 4,000 units of housing coming to the city. It's within the existing city limits, so there is no additional annexation plan for at this time. The impact fees are we raised them recently to help pay for the infrastructure, and that should take care of the infrastructure that is needed. We've also worked with developers so that the fees are being paid up front, and we are not going to be putting it on any of the additional existing rate holders. Regarding the school question, that's a separate impact fee and is not something that is from the city. So that is its own issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
I am a proponent of taxes going where they're supposed to. So the current residents and property owners of the city should not be paying for infrastructure improvements for the new units. The new units developers should be. Unfortunately, that would mean that those fees will be passed on to the people who buy those new units. I'm also not a proponent of property taxes being used to pay for a fast ferry to Seattle. If someone wants to pay to go to Seattle quickly, the ticket for the ferry should be that should be the funding source for the ferries. It's not our residents' job to pay for people in Seattle to move over here so that they can and then pay for the transportation back to their job in Seattle. So our infrastructure needs to be improved, but the funds needs to come from new construction, not our current residents.
Thank you. All right, question 5. What does affordable housing mean to you? What city policies, if any, would you support to increase the inventory of affordable housing? Mr. Jones.
Yeah, that's easy. Stop the handful of developers that want to tear down everything in town. There is affordable housing in Port Orchard. And again, I echo Shaun's version of we don't need to try and bring in everyone from Seattle. And they will go other places. There is Belfair, there are other places. If we keep the city limits small, the existing houses should be left alone, not just mine. Now the 300-acre plus government complex, that is just outrageous. And let the developers pay for it, not get rich off of people running to help them.
Thank you. Mr. Rosapepe.
Thank you. We're doing a lot for affordable housing. We've made changes to our codes where we now allow to have accessory dwelling units, ADUs. So there's can be more than one house on a one unit on a property. We've taken up congregated living. There's a unit that's being proposed off of DeKalb in a former church that will help with affordable housing. We're also working for developers that when they build units, that a certain percentage is affordable housing. And lastly, we have new state laws that we're going to have to work with for transitory housing and indoor shelters. And these are state laws that are coming down that the city's going to have to address in their code. So there's a lot going on and a lot that I hope the citizens of the city will be paying attention to. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Williams.
I live on a boat for the reason that it's hard to afford housing. So, I mean, a one-bedroom apartment goes for $1,500 a month these days, and I blame Seattle. They vote themselves out of house and home by voting for every single property tax and levy that comes along, and then wonder why their rent went up. So, if we want affordable housing, we need to stop with the increases in property taxes and levies. We need to live within our means. Every time we increase property taxes, rent goes up, housing costs go up. Yes, by making the developers pay for infrastructure improvements required for their development, that's going to cause housing prices in that development to be higher. But that's something that has to be done. In order to make housing affordable, we need to determine the reasons why housing costs are going up and then counter them so that the housing prices can come back down to affordable levels. No one wants to pay $2,000 for an apartment.
Thank you. All right, question 6. This is another lengthy question. It's on homelessness. Homelessness is an issue in Port Orchard. The 3-part question is: 1, there are a number of tiny houses constructed several years ago that sit unused in parking lots. What do you think should be done with them? 2, what specific actions do you support to address the homelessness issue in Port Orchard? And finally, do you support the emergency homeless shelter that's going to be located at the former Olympic Fitness Center building on Mile Hill Drive? Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I would think that we could start with using that 300-acre plus campus downtown from Kitsap Street up to Strauss. That would be a good place to put homeless people if that's what that was the case. Whereas that money isn't free. Maybe we could put them on the bike path. That's not a serious answer, but the money is being spent on these things. And if it's not being spent, it's being begged from the state and from the feds to do these things. And how can you worry about homelessness when you're spending millions and doggedly spending millions on these government projects? Should be spent on the homeless if that's where you want to go with that. Second, the homelessness is taking a second seat in the planning department.
Thank you. Mr. Rosapepe.
Thank you. Regarding the tiny houses, those we've been working with basically Housing Kitsap and other nonprofit organizations for location. And we believe that the nonprofit should be taking the lead in those items. As I mentioned in the last question, we are looking at other items such as the ADUs, accessory dwelling units, and also we're looking at the new state laws, as I also mentioned, because they're going to affect Port Orchard significantly. Regarding the shelter up at the on Olympic Drive, I do support that. I do support it with the county, as long as we're not the only location for a homeless shelter. These should be distributed throughout the county, so all residents are congregated in one area. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Williams.
Well, the tiny homes and the homeless shelter are good and nice. The biggest problem with homelessness is not the lack of places for them to have shelter. It's the issues that cause the homelessness, whether it's drug use or psychiatric or whatever. We need to put our resources to solving the underlying issues first, because a lot of the homeless don't want shelter, especially if it's in a zero tolerance tiny home area because of their either drug or psychiatric issues. So we need to solve the underlying problems first, and then we can work towards giving them housing. We have the ability to provide them shelter. It's whether or not they want to avail themselves of it, and that's what we have to solve first.
Thank you. All right, question 7. What are the most important infrastructure improvements that need to be addressed in the 3 main areas of Port Orchard: the North Historic Downtown, the South Bethel Sedgwick Corridor, and west of Highway 16, including McCormick Woods? And we'll start with Mr. Rosapepe.
Thank you. So north, south, and west. So all of those are going to have significant challenges with sewer as we have growth. We're planning for those improvements right now with lift stations and the replacement of the marina pump station. We also, as I mentioned before, are working on the water issue and to separate ourselves from the city of Bremerton so that we have our water under our control and are not charging additional fees to our citizens on that. We also have roads that we need to work on. And we may not like it. The roundabouts are an improvement and they need to be done to help traffic flow better. And they'll also improve where our business is located and improve the downtown corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Like Mr. Rosapepe said, we need to improve our sewage and water things. We definitely need to have an excess of sewer capability. We don't want to be like Bremerton and given a nice storm discharge into Sinclair Inlet or Seattle, just done the same thing. Our roads need to be improved. I'm not a fan of roundabouts, not because I don't believe they improve traffic flow. I know they do, statistically they do. It's just the people around here don't know how to use them. I've seen people come to a full and complete stop at a yield sign with plenty of room to go through into the roundabout. We don't need to become Gig Harbor, which is full of roundabouts. But our water and sewage infrastructure needs to be improved. We cannot allow new developments without adequate water and sewage for that development to be added. And our road, we don't need to be spending money on a bike path when we could be using that money to improve our roads, filling in potholes, especially downtown and on the Bethel corridor and everywhere else that needs it. McCormick Woods is McCormick Woods.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, roundabouts are like drinks. One or two is okay. Beyond that, yeah, it gets a little ridiculous, like what's happening in Gig Harbor. Our sewer system has been good, and I've been here since '79. Had 2 sewer assessments. They used to do it in sewer assessments back in the '80s, and but our water quality does suck. We have I've filled up my bathtub with brown water before. I don't know what we've done wrong. I'm looking forward to finding it out. But letting West Sound Development build more houses and tax that water system is not the answer. And I hope that some good practices can be put in place soon.
Thank you. All right. Question 8 is about economic development. As businesses prepare for a post-pandemic world, big box stores seem to be more focused on online sales rather than building new stores. What are ways the city of Port Orchard could encourage and support small businesses and other economic development? Mr. Rosapepe.
Wrong button. Thank you. We're working with small businesses during the pandemic. We offered aid to small businesses to apply to help them through it. Some of our funding. Online sales is part of how the city receives its money. But one of the ways we're doing it through the tourism, the lodging tax, is working with several nonprofits to make sure the city gets the word out. Why we're such a great place to live and work, and that we want people to move here and to work here. Part of that is the development with Kitsap Bank, which will bring over 200 jobs, additional jobs to downtown. That's people that are going to be spending money downtown and not taking it elsewhere. So we're working with businesses, both big and small, for the development of Port Orchard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
The pandemic and the shutdown were the largest transfer of wealth ever from the middle class to the wealthy elites. Mom and pop stores were mandated closed while Walmart and Lowe's were allowed to stay open, even though they sold the same things. So we need to work with our small businesses, maybe provide a B&O tax relief or some other tax relief for tax incentive in order to draw them to the town, the city, either downtown or along the Bethel Sedgwick corridor. We don't need more big box stores. We need small mom and pop places. And we can't do that without some sort of incentive, because the wealth has been transferred unconstitutionally, in my opinion, to the Bezos and Gates and the rich, the ultra elites.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Oh yeah, this one hits home. Most definitely. Whiskey Gulch is one of the best and busiest restaurants in this town. And where was the city of Port Orchard there? My charter boat business has been here 20 years, and my vacation rental business has been here for 20 years. And small businesses, no way. The city has bought up buildings in downtown Port Orchard. They are not a friend of small business. And that makes me choke when I hear that comment. Big box stores, hey, they're going to hang out on the outside of town. The Lowe's and Walmart, they're on the outside of town. That's fine. But the small businesses, they are being choked out. You can't even put a 3x3 sign on the outside of your building in downtown Port Orchard. So don't tell me that City of Port Orchard is a friend of small business.
Thank you. All right, question 9 pretty much dovetails with what you've been discussing, is more about the COVID response. How well have Port Orchard businesses and residents weathered the COVID pandemic? What could the city do to assist in their recovery? In what ways could the city encourage reluctant or hard to reach populations to become vaccinated? Mr. Williams.
Unfortunately, it's too late for what the city could have done and should have done. The city should have looked at the Governor Inslee when he said shut down, and went, that will destroy us and our businesses, and that's exactly what happened. We can try to entice them back, but I don't think a lot of them are coming back. Downtown is shop after shop of the same thing that have been there for years. We need something new. Businesses along Bethel closed. Businesses along Sedgwick closed, out of business, because the government said shut down. As for vaccination, that is something between the person and their doctor. It's not the government's job or anybody else's job to say you should get vaccinated. It is between someone and their doctor, because we don't know what their medical history is. And we shouldn't tell them to do things that might hurt them. It is a personal choice. It is not something we should induce. But otherwise, we've done all right.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, vaccination is a personal choice, and you can't make people do it. If they choose to, there's nothing anybody can do to talk them into it, other than restrictions on where they can come and go. So that's up to them. You can't make people do it. And as far as the businesses go, yeah, being a small business owner for the last 20 years, learn to live within a budget. Don't go off on these wild, crazy ideas for bike paths and government campuses, and tear down out libraries to put up a new building, and tear down our historic downtown. At the current rate, we might as well burn that old historic downtown sign on the waterfront, because that's not what the Port Orchard City Planning Department has in mind if they have their way.
Thank you. Mr. Rosapepe.
I was very pleased with what the city did for their COVID response. They encouraged people to get vaccines, follow the science, wear a mask. We followed the state law, which we're required to do. The city cannot go against state law without penalties. So we did a pretty good job with that. I wish we continued to get the word out, and so we can get more people vaccinated voluntarily by following the science. We had grants that went to small businesses that applied. We're giving additional funding, allocation funding for events that are occurring in the second half of this year to get more tourism back downtown and more businesses to reopen. So I'm pleased with what we're doing. We can always do more, but I'm glad we've been moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
I spoke first.
Oh.
Although I will, I do have
Oh,
a response.
wait. I'm sorry. All three of you spoke. I'm not following my notes here. I'm sorry. New question, question 10. After our blistering heat wave a few weeks ago and horrible air quality index last summer because of wildfire smoke, more residents are concerned about the climate crisis. What actions can the city take to reduce greenhouse gases and slow climate change? Mr. Jones.
Yeah, well, you can't get people on a bike unless they want to be on a bike. That's number one. Other than that, the city can certainly go to electric. City transit or Kitsap Transit can go to electric vehicles. There's not much I see where the city can do anything. There's half dozen people on bikes right now, and that's about that. Electric outlets for electric cars are great. And I do know we have a few. We can increase that. Beyond that, can't solve the world's problem in the confines of Port Orchard city limits.
Thank you. Mr. Rosapepe.
Hi. Thank you. It's a good question. And I'll start off by saying I wish we could always do more. We are looking at whether buildings meet LEED requirements, which helps with the environment by being environmentally friendly, so we're not economically friendly. We are putting in additional charging stations, as Mr. Jones suggested. And when I was on the Kitsap Transit Board, we did put in for more additional electric buses that you'll see on the roads. It's not an easy question, but we're starting to look at what we can do with developers to save energy. Even City Hall, which will be going under an upgrade here, will be going to solar panels, which should take 75% of the electrical load off of City Hall and put it towards solar. So the things that we can encourage, very few things that we can mandate except in new buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
In the marine industry, we assume that solar panels will only be about 80% efficient when we're talking about charging and whatnot to determine how much we would need for each boat. So while solar is all well and good and we can provide some tax incentives for people to put them on their roofs, it's not the end all be all. As for electric charging stations, we have to determine where that power is coming from. In the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of hydroelectric power, thankfully. But how long will that last when people want to tear down dams in the Snake River? And then when solar and wind, when the sun's not shining, the wind's not blowing, what is the backup power source? We have to figure that one out. I am a proponent of nuclear power. And while the city itself cannot do much when it comes to climate change and attempting to solve it, that is more of an individual global thing. It's convincing people. We can support alternative forms of energy that aren't carbon based. Nuclear is basically carbon neutral.
Thank you. All right, question 11. What is your perception of how Port Orchard residents regard our emergency services, police, fire, and EMS, emergency medical services? Do you have suggestions on how to improve these services and/or their relationships with the community? Mr. Jones.
I can't really complain. I've had my charter boats broken into twice. And through a strange coincidence, the police came to tell me that my boats were broken into and they have my things 20 years ago and about 5 years ago. So I don't see it back down at the house where I lived, where they want to put the bike path. I've seen cars go in the bay there, and the police response was good. So I can't be really critical of Port Orchard Police. I just haven't seen it. That doesn't mean there's not some problems. I personally, they've been incredible. As far as the fire department, same thing. Had a house fire 30 years ago, and they were right there. So I don't know. I guess I need to know more if there's a problem.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rosapepe.
I'm very pleased and proud of our police force. They're working. We have a new police chief, approximately 2 years now, Chief Brown. He's working toward accreditation. He's working toward diversity of the police force. Our assistant police chief is Donna Main, who came up through the ranks, is an outstanding officer. And I agree with Mr. Jones that they've done an outstanding job. But working toward accreditation, they're going to even get better. Regarding the South Kitsap Fire and Rescue, they have done a great job working with the city. They are not members of the city. We don't respond to they don't respond to the council, but they work closely with us. The city also partnered with South Kitsap Fire and Rescue to have a navigator program, which helps with mental illness response when there are issues. So it's not just the police that are responding. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
I haven't had much interaction with the police or fire department other than when a boat caught fire at the marina, and the fire department responded pretty good. It was 2 a.m. As for the police, I am not a proponent of defunding them, as city after city has shown that when you defund police, crime goes up. And that is definitely something we don't need. They won't enforce all the laws. I have a disability that prevented me from wearing masks during the pandemic. And there's a state law that says you can't refuse service for disability. But if a business calls the police, the Port Orchard Police will happily trespass you out of a business that is violating state law by refusing you service on the basis of disability. So, but one's a criminal, one's a civil. So that's the issue there. Understandable. I am a proponent of accountability, though, so I don't like qualified immunity, but that's about it.
Thank you. Question 12. If elected, how would you make yourself accessible to your constituents and encourage your fellow council members to do the same? Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'm easy to access. My phone number is on the side of my house, and anytime after my charters run from 8:30 in the morning to about 2:30, unless I have an afternoon and an evening charter. But I will always be accessible. The city council has a unique situation in the sense that they can sit there and listen to you and nod their head, and you don't know what they're going to do until they do it. Unlike a mayor or any other elected official who voices his opinion. I will voice my opinion, and I would be glad to voice my opinion. And please ask me if you don't like how what I have to say, show where I'm wrong, and I will listen. But yeah, right now, sitting through these meetings, I had no idea what city council was going to do until they actually voted, and then it's too late. I want transparency.
Mr. Rosapepe.
Thank you. Personally accessible, email is out there. The phone, I have both the city line and publish my personal cell phone. I'm downtown or in the Sunny Slope area where I live, which is McCormick Woods. Also with the folks from the Ridge. I interact with a lot of folks from the South Kitsap school supporters, so I have a pretty good idea of what's going on in the city. Try to spend as much of my money downtown as possible. Go there first before I go anywhere else. I would like, the city is moving toward a webinar format away from the Zoom, so we can broadcast live at the same time we're having live meetings. We're seeing an increase, people seeing our meetings, which is great. I would also like to take our city council meetings on the road. We're trying to work that out technically. So hopefully you'll see more of us all the time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
All right, now in my campaign, my personal cell phone is the phone number that is on there. I will be adding a campaign phone eventually. I just haven't turned it on. But I have an email, I have a phone number. I'm reachable from either one and will usually respond. Now, granted, I won't answer a phone call when the phone is calling from Florida or Ohio or something like that, because I assume that's a spam. But if it's a 360 number, I'll probably pick up and say, hello. So if I'm not at work and kind of busy, because I might be stuffed in an engine bay somewhere fixing something electrical, but I'm very contactable, email, whatnot, phone number. Don't matter. And I will happily respond to anybody. I don't lie to a direct question. So you may not like my answer, but I won't lie.
Right. Thank you. Well, we are getting close to our end time. And so we're going to go with the closing statements. And these are 90 seconds each. And we'll start with Mr. Rosapepe.
Again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters Kitsap for hosting this. I kind of wish that there had been more folks that had participated. I think it's great for the public to hear as many times from the candidates, not only through a forum like this, but also in information as such as the Voters Guide. I think we have a great city. I think the city will continue to move forward, progress. Growth is inevitable, whether we like it or not. We cannot say no growth. It's not feasible and opens the city up to numerous lawsuits. We have challenges, anything from how do we get more people involved, to the idea of transparency. What does it mean? How do we get the word out? I'm very proud of what the council is doing. I'm proud to be a member of the city council. And I look forward to serving the city in position 2, which is a 4-year, where previously I'd served at the at-large position, which is a 2-year position. So I believe in the citizens of Port Orchard. I look forward to serving the citizens of Port Orchard for a 4-year term. And I look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. And yes, I know it sounds like I'm copying Mr. Rosapepe when I say that, but I'm honest about it. I hope that people elect me to the council for some accountability and transparency and fiscal responsibility. We need a balanced budget in the council. We don't need to be going into debt for anything. I am a strict constitutionalist, thanks to my 20 years in the Navy. And my first duty is to the Constitution. The second duty is to the constituency, as any politician should be. I do not like graft or anything else. So I also don't like racism in any form. I will despise any race-based training or anything else. Diversity is needed, but we can't do we can't force diversity by using quotas. It's illegal. It's a violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So we have to encourage the diversity by encourage people to be the best that they can be, not going, I pick you because of this identity or whatnot. It has to be, you're the best at it. Identity should have nothing to do with it. It's they're the best person, regardless if they're straight, gay, male, black, white, whatever. It's they're the best person. So that is how it should be.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Again, I am running because of the eminent domain issue in 2010, 11 years ago. Mark Dorsey in the planning department was furious when I was told that my house was on the chopping block. That's the kind of transparency we had. It could be buried in city council meetings between who is applying to have 4 dogs and what are we going to do with Fathoms of Fun, and then, oh, by the way, we're going to take people's homes and shut down businesses. That kind of transparency we have not had to date. City has never even made an offer on my home or for value, and I don't want them to. I wish them to leave me alone. And John down the street does not wish to sell. But that's not the point. The point is, Mr. Dorsey was so furious that someone had told me what was actually part of public disclosure, but it was hidden, because that's the kind of transparency that is in our planning department, and this should not be allowed. And from here on in, maybe some other city council people in other cities are a little more vocal than we'd all like to see, but at least people know where they stand.
Thank you, candidates. Voters, hopefully this forum has helped you choose a candidate. Ballots for the August 3rd primary election will be mailed out by July 16th, so keep an eye out for them. The League is encouraging voters to vote early and return their ballots as soon as possible, preferably to one of Kitsap County's 23 ballot drop boxes. Their locations can be found on the Kitsap Auditor's website. Tonight's forum and 5 more this week will be recorded, and links to the videos will soon be on our website at lwv-kitsap.org. BCAT will also be broadcasting the recordings at a time to be determined. Please encourage others to view the forums and vote. Thank you for attending, and good night.